Hello, I'm Richard Sher, and once again, it's time to square off. 40 years this program has been in Baltimore, so we want to welcome our panel. There is the amazing talk show specialist, Dan Joseph. Dan, welcome back.
Thank you.
Jimmy Mathis, he is part of Baltimore radio, as is Jayne Miller, who's on WBAL Radio 1090 on Saturdays from 11 to 1. And Jayne, as you know, is a fabulous reporter. Of course, I'm spending too much time on this, but let's not forget Mary Koch, one of the brightest attorneys ever. Malpractice is her specialty. Anyway, thank you guys for coming on this week. Hope you all tolerated the snow and can stay warm. Well, in a surprise announcement, the Baltimore Sun has been purchased by David D. Smith. He's the executive chairman of Sinclair Broadcasting, which owns Fox 45 in Baltimore and almost 200 other broadcast properties across this nation. Now, reporting from the Washington Post, excuse me, the Baltimore Banner, and NPR, the report is that Smith met with 60 of the Sun paper's employees, where he told the group that he had read the Sun maybe 4 times in the past 40 years. He suggested that the Sun overlooks the stories readers crave about crime and government dysfunction. Smith called the print media meaningless dribble, including the Baltimore Sun. Dan, doesn't sound like it was too much of a cheer rally.
No, it does not. But let's be honest. I've been here for about 5 years. The Baltimore Sun is a left-wing rag, to put it bluntly. I think that the Baltimore Sun is one of those papers, one of those legacy media papers that has consistently shown that it is on the far left. Now, you want to talk about Sinclair and that the Sinclair networks tend to be more conservative, tend to push a more conservative message. I don't love that. Okay, I don't love media bias of any kind. I do want them to cover stories that can be inconvenient potentially to one political ideology or another. But remember, this is all a reaction. This kind of thing. And if Sinclair moves the Baltimore Sun to the right more, it's a reaction to 50 years of the left dominating the mainstream media. And this is what happens when you leave conservative viewpoints out.
Mary Koch, what do you think about this purchase?
I don't even know what to say about the last comments. I just would simply say, look, I don't think media should have a bent, period. I think that the story should be reported honestly and truthfully, and it shouldn't be shaded by people's perceptions or people's political perceptions. And sometimes I think that the people who are commenting on what's reported are much more likely to point out a shading because they don't like the truth that has been reported. So
interesting.
I would hope that regardless of what his position is, that the people who are actually writing the stories and editing the stories and putting it out are being, honoring the truth and reporting truthfully and reporting without bias. I don't know what else to say about that. You can't really judge by who owns it. It should be the people who are writing and reporting who are important.
Jimmy, what do you think about this?
In full disclosure, I work for Sinclair Broadcasting. Sinclair did not buy the Sun. David Smith did. I've been a political contributor in this market for 2 decades, including well over 10 years with WBAL. So I speak for myself on this. I want there to be no ambiguity in that. You cannot argue the fact that Baltimore Sun has been in a precipitous decline ever since I was able to read. The fact is the lights were ready to go out on the Baltimore Sun. 3 people here have hosted radio shows. I don't know about you, Jayne, but the only reason why I ever read the Sun was for the editorial pages because it was so over the top left leaning. It was good red meat to throw it over the radio. I think David may have saved the Baltimore Sun. Of course, the left is going to lose their mind because it is a liberal rag to what the first guest said.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, Dan.
That's all right.
It's a
Oh, Jimmy, did you finish your sentence?
no. I
did.
it's That's been in journalism, okay, for over a quarter century. And Jayne, I know you have been longer than me. I love print journalism, and it kills me to see it going into extinction. And that's where the Baltimore Sun was heading. It's the only major newspaper in this town. It is the written record. I don't want to see it go away. And frankly, David Smith saved it.
Jayne Miller, I know you have a lot of thoughts on this, so let's hear from you.
I don't agree that the Baltimore Sun is a left-wing rag. It's obviously has a lot of tradition in this town, and who knows what's going to happen at this point. But I want to point out kind of a different angle on this. I mean, this announcement comes at the same time that campaign finance records show that David Smith is spending a lot of money to do two things. One is to reduce the number of city council seats from 14 to 8 with a ballot initiative, and that he has put $100,000 into a PAC that's in support of Sheila Dixon. And this is also with Fox 45, a station that has Ms. Dixon on a lot. So what concerns me, and this is irrespective of, you know, any kind of political to this, but what concerns me is the concentration of influence with one individual who's going to have a newspaper and a TV station in the same market. Now, FCC used to have cross ownership rules that prohibited this kind of thing, but they have gone away. And so it's possible that this can happen. I don't know what the end game is here. I have not seen a transaction figure on paper. I know that, but I would, what concerns me also is that he had a meeting with the Baltimore Sun staff, which has now been reported in great detail. And I mean, these were really incendiary remarks about, calling the products of the city school system welfare recipients. This is not what, if you're going to lead a news organization with that kind of attitude, it raises all kinds of flags to me. And
Well, Jayne, wait, Jimmy, hold on one second. Put your hands down, Jimmy.
Think David any laws? You had a litany of things. Are you making any accusations against this man?
Who?
David, other than the fact that you don't like it, are you accusing him of breaking any laws?
No, I'm not accusing anybody of anything. But what I am saying is I'm raising a concern that has been raised. This is a concern across the country, is the ability of people with wealth to influence elections. This all goes back to the 2010 decision, Citizens United. We're seeing it play out in real time, where you have a media owner who now owns a TV station and the newspaper, and at the same time is spending a lot of money to get a particular political candidate elected.
All right, let me jump in.
That is a concern.
Needless to say, Jayne was talking about what turned out to be a very contentious meeting, 2.5 hours, where Mr. Smith cited declining print circulation through newspapers nationwide. Sinclair's nearly 200 local TV stations have shown a marked conservative bent in recent years. Mary, I saw you listening very astutely. What do you want to add to what Jayne said?
Well, I think that honestly, I was listening to the comment about the SEC because I know that, and I haven't read up on it 100%, but I know pending in front of the Supreme Court is a case in which the Supreme Court is going to be deciding sort of what the administrative arm of government can do, and ceding that authority, giving that authority to the courts. So I find it interesting, the commentary about sort of the SEC no longer enforcing or being able to enforce rules where people can't own multiple media outlets in the same market. And I think that problem is going to get worse. I also, and this is my lawyer bent, I consider Citizens United to be probably the most impactful and worst decision ever made by a Supreme Court in this country because of exactly that influence. And I think, honestly speaking, and I guess I'm an idealist. I understand when people talk about it's got a left bend or a right bend. I've always looked at journalism as something where, you just need to report the facts and people need to use their own brains to figure out what that means to them and how they interpret it. And we've gotten really far away from that. So I would say, first of all, that to call the Baltimore Sun, you know, a left-leaning rag sheet, I don't know that that's necessarily fair. But I do think that, you know, that's the way all media has gone. And all media has gone that way because really it's about people who want to make money and not really about reporting anymore. That's what, you know, Fox News and, you know, and you could say it about MSNBC and CNN, who, you know, all of them, I mean, they're telling stories in a way in which it captures their audience's attention. So I hate the labels. And I think that it is really important if someone has an ulterior motive in buying this, that influences what they would like to have happen.
Dan, let's hear from you now. Wait, let Dan first, Jimmy.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm not as concerned about media consolidation, but I am very concerned about what Mary was talking about, which was that media in general, and this is on the left and the right, is becoming much more interested in opinion journalism than they are in terms of regular journalism. Sadly, in many ways, that is what people want right now. People want the opinion journalism. The reason I think why Fox News, CNN, MSNBC still exist to the point that they do is because they have those opinion shows, because they're giving their own personal views on the issues. Now, should a newspaper focus on journalism? Should they focus on getting the facts out there? Yes, but there are two things that need to be somewhat balanced. The editorial page should be somewhat balanced, and the stories that they decide to cover and the stories that they decide not to cover should be balanced as well. If you don't have balance in those two areas, you're going to have a paper or a TV station that's just promoting an ideological view, and I don't like that.
I totally agree.
Post, Jimmy, the Washington Post article goes on to report, quote, back in 2018, Sinclair required its news anchors nationwide to read a script condemning fake news, invoking Donald Trump's derogatory terms for the news media. And Mr. Smith also praises Fox 45's news as being an example of successful news coverage. Jim?
Again, I don't represent Sinclair 45 or David Smith. I agree with what Mary and Dan were saying. There's a big difference between traditional journalism and opinion journalism. And whether it's MSNBC, Fox News, CNN, Dan is absolutely correct. None of them are fair and balanced, nor do they have to be. That's not why you're tuning in. You're not tuning in for journalism. You're tuning in for whoever the host, the moderator, for what their opinion is. Same thing with talk radio. I think the problem is a lot of people in the media, they don't make that distinction to the readers, to the listeners, to the viewers, and it comes across as it is just the facts and nothing but the facts. But that's not what opinion journalism is. It's simply not. The paper, however, other than the opinion pages, or I guess to a certain extent, the editorial page, should be simply fact-based. And you can't deny the fact that the Baltimore Sun has been very left-leaning, and they've lost readers and circulation for decades over it. And now, you know, they've gone to one edition. You could basically print the thing on a Xerox machine, and they were on the verge of going out of business. You want to talk about the facts? Those are the facts.
Jayne,
you know what I love about print? You know what I love about print journalism, honestly, and I'm sorry that, I mean, we talk about print journalism with the Sun, but really it's electronic. It's not really. I mean, there's not that many people now who get a newspaper in their front yard, bring it in and read it while they're eating breakfast. It doesn't happen. But the one thing I like about a newspaper, and I really wish, and I'm being idealistic, that it was sort of neutral in presenting the facts, is that somebody doesn't go on the internet and put in a search term and get everything in the world that is, you know, an algorithm related to their echo chamber. That's what I like about a newspaper. A newspaper, you can open it up and read it from cover to cover and just get articles and draw your own conclusions. That to me is the goal, is to present the information so that people can have knowledge, make decisions, understand what's going on in their world. And that's what makes print journalism, in my mind, so different than the crap that we read all the time, which is all geared towards, you know, what search terms have we used in the past and what are our predilections, and let's put somebody back in their echo chamber, which precipitates all of this. I want to just listen to Sean Hannity, or I just want to listen to Anderson Cooper because they're telling me that I'm right. And that is really, to me, the most frightening thing in journalism today.
Jayne Miller, you get the last word on this topic.
I have nothing more to say. Honestly. I have many of the same concerns. I share some of the concerns about the future of journalism, certainly. And and agree that with Mary that, you know, the algorithms are that, you know, you kind of get pushed into an echo chamber. And, you know, I don't know what the end result of that is, but I will add this because, you know, we do have a second publication in Baltimore, the Baltimore Banner, which is doing some very good work. And so that's a good thing because, you know, the Baltimore Sun has declined over the years, it's at least in terms of its, you know, circulation, et cetera. But we do have this nonprofit entity called the Baltimore Banner that has hired a lot of the Sun reporters. Some of them are veteran reporters, and they're doing a lot of good work, and that's really a good thing.
Okay. All right, here's what we have to do. We need to stop for a second because there is no controversy when it comes to the voice of Square Off. Here he is, Howard Mellison. Go ahead, Howard.
Hang on 1 second, Richard. There we go. Okay, hold on. There I am.
Ah,
Okay, thank you.
Almost. Oh,
You know, for fine dining, special occasions, and especially this weekend with the Ravens being in the divisional playoff game, if you don't have tickets to get to the stadium or you would like to watch the stadium and have a great crab cake, go to Pappas. Pappas has got TVs everywhere, big ones, really big ones. It's like being there. It's better than being there because you can get that great fab cake, as Richard calls it, which is Oprah's favorite. They have a wonderful menu. They're delicious choices all over the place. Pappas ships their crab cakes all over the country, and with 4 locations, including their newest sports bar and restaurant in Bel Air, make Pappas your weekend stop. Leading Edge Auto Body and Mechanical Repair want you to know that the insurance companies cannot tell you where to take your car. And, you know, Richard and his family have been taking their cars to Leading Edge for many, many years. They work on all makes and models, and they offer free pickup anywhere in the Baltimore area. Call Leading Edge at 410-433-6433 or visit them at 5807 Falls Road in the heart of Mount Washington. They make your car look and run like new again. Now back to you, Richard.
all right, Howard, thank you. Leading Edge, by the way, terrific guys. Jeff Siegel, an entire force of guys and women who will make your car look like new, I guarantee it. All right, CNN calls former President Donald Trump's huge win in the Iowa caucuses, quote, one of the astonishing comebacks in American political history. And CNN goes on, reporting losing one-term presidents almost never mount subsequent campaigns, much less pulling off landslides that demonstrate utter dominance of their party. Jimmy, take off on this.
I've been saying this for months. I mean, it's a comeback from him losing his second term originally. Keep in mind, he was impeached twice. He's been running away with it for the last year. We're, 3 months away from the primary, unless something drastic happens, which I have no idea what that would be. He's going to win the nomination. Joe Biden has zero voter enthusiasm at all. And the people that like Trump really like Trump, and his base will turn out. This election comes down to the people that hate Trump, and I don't know the answer to this, but the people that hate Trump, do they hate him enough to show up and pull the lever? There may be enough of those people out there, but that is a very dangerous strategy to run a campaign.
Go ahead, Mayor.
He's not an incumbent in the minds of the people that are voting for him. I mean, he's not a loser. He is the incumbent as far as they're concerned. So it's really that what we're seeing is something I don't think we've ever seen in American history. And I don't think you can look at his campaign and say, well, here's the guy who lost the election and now all of a sudden he's able to mount a comeback. The people that are voting for him believe he never lost in the first place and he's the actual president, the vast majority. And so really what they're doing is replacing who they believe is our rightful leader. So I think this is a completely different dynamic and a completely different way of looking at elections and campaigns. And I don't think we can compare it to anything that's happened in the past.
Dan, what are you saying?
Look, I think this is proof that the primary system is screwed up when you have 2 candidates who are really unpopular, and Donald Trump and Joe Biden, both sailing to their nominations, soaring to their. I think things need to change. I think we need to make sure that the primary system is more fair, that there are more voices in it. But let's talk about. I'm not a fan of Donald Trump. Everybody knows that. But let's talk about how brilliant what he did was. Horrible, but brilliant. From the moment that he lost that election, even before he lost the election, he was out there saying, it's rigged. I didn't lose the election. I was the actual winner of this election, and it was stolen from me, and it was stolen from you, my voters. That's what he did. And he got everybody to believe it. And I think, a lot of people don't want to believe that their incumbent president is a loser, so they willingly went along. That was the end as far as DeSantis's candidacy went, as far as Haley's candidacy went. They didn't have a chance.
Jayne, I'm ready to hear you.
I mean, what do you add to all of this? I agree that this is not like you can compare this to anything in the past, obviously. I'll tell you what really disappoints me is that Trump has not joined any of the debates.
Why would he?
Because, well, you might say that. Why would he? I get you, politically, but I just think that, and the other thing is that, for whatever he is saying on the campaign trail, not a lot of it gets covered, in the large sense by media. It gets covered by conservative media, but it does not get covered. I think it is a little bit more now, but so they haven't heard his Hitler-like quotes, etc., in the larger sense. But I just think this is, obviously on the Democratic side, you don't really have much going on there in terms of, competition in the primaries. But I just wish that there would have been an opportunity for the Republican public to see these candidates on the same stage.
By claiming, wait. By claiming 50% of the vote in the biggest win in caucus
Iowa.
Hold on, puts Trump on course to his third consecutive nomination, showing, according to the writings in his reporting, that 8 years after his outsider presidential victory, the current Republican Party is entirely the party of Trump. Go ahead, Jimmy.
Well, it is. All I was going to say on the reason for him not attending the debates, of course, it's a political reason. Anybody that follows politics knows you don't win debates. You're preaching to the choir. You just try not to lose them. So there's nothing for him politically to gain out of it other than for liberals to beat up on him and call him Hitler. And second of all, Trump brings eyeballs. So by Trump being on that stage, he brings ratings. So there's no logical reason why he would do that to the competition.
All right.
So
Jimmy, I did not say I wasn't saying this politically. I was saying this in a much more idealistic sense, is that, yes, the primary system is screwed up, no question. And in the Republican primaries, the Republican voter has not had an opportunity to see these candidates on the same stage. That it was strictly, you're telling me I don't know how politics works. My God, I covered politics for 50 years,
You know what? In 2015 and 2016, he was on the stage with how many were up there? 12, 13. He started out at 0.5%. He chopped them all down one by one. So he did that.
Well, this is new, though. This is a new territory we're in. I don't believe we've ever had a former president run in a political primary. Primaries aren't that old. They're only really from the 1970s when they started mattering. But
True.
Look, I agree. I think that in a perfect world, Donald Trump would be up on that stage. But from a political perspective, it makes no sense for him to be there because he wanted from the very beginning to be running as sort of a pseudo incumbent.
All right, let me say this. This morning, there were a series of flashes on the wire, and then we're going to move on. That Donald Trump Jr. says Tucker Carlson is, quote, certainly a contender for Donald Trump's vice president.
oh my God. Oh my God.
On that note,
I
here again is Howard with some more great sponsors.
What do you, come on.
Howard, you're
What do you
muted.
say?
Oh,
No,
gotcha. Okay. I'm sure you've seen some of the Barry Glazer TV commercials. They're different. They get your attention. They also get you results. That's why Barry Glazer and his team, including an in-house doctor, make no apologies for getting every penny they can from the insurance companies. So when it comes to personal injury or medical malpractice, go to Richard and my friend Barry Glazer. There's only one choice. Good old Barry, 410-547-8568. He gets results. And also, you know, there's a lot of diners in Baltimore. The most famous of them all are the Double T diners. TT, totally terrific. You're sure to find the best breakfast, lunch, or dinner at the Double T diners. Enormous menu selections are great. There's Double T locations on Route 40, Perry Hall, White Marsh, Annapolis, Pasadena, and the EC Diner in Ellicott City. Plus, try By the Docks in Middle River for their Monday night lobster special. They are all in the Double T family. Now back to you, Richard.
Very good, Howard. Thank you very much. Well, there was a story in the New York Times again about Baltimore, but this time it's not about violence or stolen cars or juvenile crimes. It's all positive. As Charm City, Baltimore, Maryland, makes the New York Times list of its top 15 places to visit.
52.
2020.
Top 52.
Go to one every week.
Oh, right.
Top 52.
It includes Paris, Maui, New Zealand, and Baltimore, and others. Jayne, you're excited about this.
Well, no, look, you know, I said New York Times, you know, is recognizing what we all know, you know, is that the city has lots of things that are really going for it. Not that you would necessarily know that, you know, locally, but I mean, what they're pointing out is that there's a lot of things going on this year in the Thurgood Marshall Center is going to open in West Baltimore. You know, the waterway, you know, networking that's gone on for kayaking, boating. And then the author of the article is a John Waters fan, and the film Liarmouth is shooting this year in Baltimore. But he had really positive things to say about the city. And the only reason I've been a resident here for a very long time, and I just think that I've traveled many places, and there's something about Baltimore that is different, unique, and really sticks with you. And that may be because I've been here for so long, but obviously the city has its challenges, like many cities, but it also has a lot going on, a lot going for it. And I think this year you're going to see a lot of things, you know, new things, et cetera, going on.
Jayne, thank you so much. Sir Dan.
Yeah, I think that it's true. Baltimore is a very unique city. It's not the same way that, you know, you go to places like Cleveland or Detroit, you know, cities that are kind of depressed because of the implosion of the industrialization. It's a different feel. Baltimore has its own charm, to be fair. And I think, unfortunately for the city, it's good that the New York Times decided to publish something like this to remind people that Baltimore actually exists. But until Baltimore City can get past the problems that it has, you know, it seems like it's kind of done that over the last year to a certain extent. Until that happens, people aren't coming to Baltimore. I mean, they're not, because our problems are infamous. Our problems are, compared to the rest of the country, they see Baltimore and they say, stay away from there.
Jayne, well, no, wait. Mary, let's have your reaction to Dan's.
So, I mean, my reaction is a little bit mixed. So, you know, I have tried a couple cases recently down, you know, I tried a case recently down in Baltimore, and I tried a case down in Baltimore a year ago. And what I have to say is the thing that concerns me about Baltimore is it has not recovered. Like there are places in Baltimore that are great, but downtown, like being where the courthouses were, which was always a flurry of activity, always lots of people, it's completely dead. There's nothing there. There's nowhere to go for lunch. And quite frankly, trying to find a hotel to stay in for, you know, a week or 2 weeks in order to try a case, there's not a lot of good choices. There just isn't. And even the ones that are nicer hotels are all showing the wear and tear because they really haven't been kept up since COVID. And so, I mean, I think it's great. I think there are a lot of positives. I think that, like Jayne said, there are every city in America suffers from some level of crime problem, poverty, homelessness. I mean, you see it, you can't avoid it. It is just part of city living, unfortunately. But I think that one of the problems I have is that Baltimore is like a little tired and it needs to be invigorated. I mean, people who want to come here, who have money, who are going to spend money, I think are going to be a little bit disappointed with some of the accommodations and the way in which some of the things in the city have been maintained. And that to me is a problem.
Jimmy Mathis.
Well, look, I got mixed feelings on this too. At some point, perception is reality. The crime, the juvenile crime, the homicides, the auto thefts, all these things are real problems. But I do agree. One of the things that makes Baltimore so unique, that if you don't live here, you probably don't realize it is a city of neighborhoods. And each neighborhood has its own unique feel and a character to it. We have a lot to offer. We have the Hippodrome. We have a great symphony, 2 world-renowned stadiums. The harbor it's a little beat up, but there's opportunity there. The National Aquarium, the Science Center, the zoo. There's a lot to this city. And then its proximity to New York and Washington, D.C. We have mountains. We have the beach with Ocean City. We have gambling in Atlantic City. If you want to go there, we have gambling here in Maryland. But we do need to get over our troubles because, again, the country views us as one of the most dangerous cities in America, if not the most dangerous city in America. And until you can shake that perception, it's going to be hard to sell the things that we actually do have.
So I think it's interesting that you say that, because I have a house at the Jersey Shore where I am right now. And so I get the Philly stations all the time. And I got to tell you, Baltimore would have a hard time holding a candle to Philadelphia when it comes to the most dangerous cities. I mean, there's a lot.
New York is the same way.
Going on.
St. Louis.
This
I mean,
gets to the whole point. This gets to the whole point of it really doesn't matter what your crime rate is. Media says it's bad. So
Correct.
it doesn't matter that there's been improvements in the crime, in the amount of crime, et cetera. Obviously, we still have a high level of violent crime, but this is an interesting phenomena of, is that it really doesn't, it's irrespective. Doesn't matter where you are in this country. You turn on the local news, it's going to be about crime.
And that's my
Well,
point.
and
I
it's
was just going to say, it's not the local media that's just beating up on the city. Right now, we're beating Detroit nationally. When you talk about cities that are in chaos, Baltimore, to your point, Jayne, is the one that they reference. They don't reference Philadelphia, even though Philly may be worse. I don't know. I've been to Philly in a long time.
We're a
But
lot smaller.
You know what? Do you know what one of the biggest differences is in Baltimore? One of the biggest differences, I think, is that crime has seeped into areas that are classically tourist areas, which are usually protected and usually are safe, if you will, from that kind of crime that we see in most cities. And I think a lot of that is sort of all of everything that's happened with like the squeegee kids, and the idea of ingress and egress to the city has been affected by the fact that there are people there who are going to approach your car, and some of them are armed. I mean, those kinds of things. I mean, I think everybody knows when they go to a city, I don't care where in the world you go to a city, that there's going to be crime. What the expectation is that the areas which are the money makers are going to be protected, that you're going to be safe in those areas. And I think that's the perception that really kills us. That you're not safe there.
That's the problem when you have a squeegee kid murdering somebody.
Squeegee kids aren't down the corner anymore.
In front of Camden Yards on game
You know that,
day.
right?
Right? That's the problem.
They're
right?
not on the corner anymore.
Oh, they'll be back.
Right.
They are on the corner.
Guys,
I don't know. It's been more than a year.
ladies and gentlemen, we need to stop. Jayne, I know you have a very special guest and a friend coming
Yes.
up on this
Mutual
Saturday,
friend. Yep.
Saturday's show on BAL. Tell us about Stan Preston. What's he going to
Stan
talk
Preston has made a documentary called Baltimore 100 Years. From what I have seen, I'm actually in it, but that's I'm one of the interviews in it. It's a beautifully shot and narrated documentary about the last 100 years, 1920 to 2020 in Baltimore. And I think it's going to be really good for people to see it, to understand the whole picture. I mean, why are we where we are? I mean, I've worked on a documentary and did a lot of research on it. So I have a great, background in the same thing, is that, you have all of the things that happened over the 100 years that get Baltimore to where it is today. Anyway,
All right.
Stan Preston's going to be on my show tomorrow at 11 o'clock.
All right. Thank you, guys. Hey, this is a good show. Sorry about the snow. But let's keep our eye on the Baltimore Ravens. Dan Joseph, Jimmy Mathis, Jayne Miller, Mary Cook. Thank you all. Thanks to our many, many, many viewers. Our audience continues to grow. We really appreciate it. We're at squareoff.net, and we're also on YouTube at Square Off Show. So drive carefully, go Ravens, and see you next time. And once again, Square Off. Goodbye, everybody.